interviews. So the first thing I would start off with is the dating purposes and characteristics to kind of introduce the subject to them. And I'd show a video on teen dating called An Adolescent's Perspective, which was an interview, like a peer interviewed some of his other peers about why students should or shouldn't date. And some kids said they should and some said they shouldn't for different reasons. And then in groups, the students will come up with their definition of what dating is exactly. And they will brainstorm why people date and the purposes of it. And on an overhead, I'll have like a couple examples to get them going, such as like socialization, recreation, mate selection, and then the students will add theirs to it. Then they will split the group into boys and girls on one side of the room and give them a poster, and each of them will write positive characteristics of dating on one side, and on the reverse side of the poster board they'll write their negative characteristics of dating. And we compared the differences between genders. And finally, on the first day, we'll read a story called The First Date. And there's two perspectives. The first part of the story is Connie's view of her first date, and then the other side is Jerry's view. So it's kind of interesting to see like the different perspectives of a boy versus girl of their first date. Then day two, they'll do the dating qualities and appropriateness. And I would have a worksheet that has like the do's and don'ts of dating, and the students will go down and like answer sometimes, always, or never. So like some examples would be white lies are better than the truth, and then they would answer like sometimes, always, or never. And then more responsibility equals more freedom. So, and then they will write positive qualities about themselves, and this will kind of be like a self-esteem booster, because in middle school students don't have that great of self-esteem, so it'll make them feel better and like think maybe they're like worthy of getting a date and like they have good qualities about themselves. And then they will make a brochure of their dream date and the qualities they're looking for in another person, and this will help them realize like sometimes kids want a boyfriend or a girlfriend so badly they'll settle for something they really don't like or that's not good for them. So this will help compare like what a person's like compared to what they're interested in. And then we'll hand out envelopes to each group when we split the class up, and there'll be pictures in them of like famous people in clothes, like maybe Miley Cyrus in one of her new like provocative outfits, and then they'll decide if it's appropriate to wear on a date, and if so, where. Or like someone on a red carpet wearing a fancy dress, and then just like regular clothes. So then the students will write why they're appropriate or why they're not appropriate. And then they'll share what they came up with the class, because each group will have a different set of pictures. Okay, and then dating anxiety will be on day 3. And they'll list adjectives about their feelings on dating, like if you think of dating, how they feel, because for a lot of kids these will be like their first time dating in middle school, so they can be like really anxious about what to expect. And in groups they'll come up with a definition of what a romantic relationship is, and then compare it back to day 1, how it's different than just dating. And then on an overhead there'll be characteristics of a romantic relationship, such as like intimacy, passion, commitment. And then I'll put up a table with examples of dating anxiety that I found that like other middle school students had come up with, the things that make them like anxious about going on dates, or like their concerns or worries. And in groups they will list things that cause them anxiety or pressure about dating. And a lot of the pressure comes from their peers, like someone being like, oh, I dare you to kiss Johnny. Like, so, and someone might not feel comfortable doing that. So we'll talk about like how peer pressure can really affect how students feel, and like you're so wanting to be accepted at that time you might do it, but you're not like ready for it yet. And finally, to close that activity, we'll brainstorm activities to relieve anxiety or pressure. So if you get in like this anxiety before you go on a date, you'll come up with ways you can relieve this stress before you go out. pressures is kind of a big thing that's happening today. So we'll show the sexual pressures for teenagers, which is a video that talked about how a lot of kids are like pressured into sex now. And this comes a lot from the media or the internet. And also it talked about how kids are home alone more with two working parents. So when you have the house to yourself and you're home alone with another person, you're more like pressured to do something because no one's there to like catch you. And then I know a lot of you are like girls in here, so you've probably seen Cosmo magazine. And that magazine is all about like different kinds of sex and like sex positions and quizzes. Yeah. So yeah, so like a lot of kids at this age are like starting to read magazines more and more, and it kind of sparks their curiosity. And so they may like want to try out what they're reading about, or like say, oh, I've done that. And then as an activity, the kids will list their top TV shows they watch, and then we'll like compile a list and see how many of their favorite TV shows have peer pressure in them or sexual pressures, like even like 16 and Pregnant a lot of kids watch, or The Secret Life of an American Teenager. Like these are shows middle schoolers are watching, and they're all about like sleeping around and pressure to drink or do drugs. And then we'll separate the girls and boys again, and they'll create a poster about pressures they feel from the opposite sex. So if the boy, like a girl can be like, I feel pressured to like go to the boy's house when his parents aren't home. Like he keeps asking me to come over. And then they'll come up with solutions to these problems once they share them, and like kids will understand they're not really ready for this. And then the last one on this first week, we're going to talk about dating violence, and we'll read A Twisted Love Story. And it's a poem about physical and emotional abuse. And so the kids can see how a person's feeling once they've been abused and how it affects their subconscious. And with a partner, they'll do a web search about dating violence, and they'll try to answer, what is dating violence? Who does it happen to? What are the symptoms? What should someone do if they are abused in a relationship? And how do you prevent dating violence? So we'll give them like websites, and then they'll go explore those websites and find the answers to these questions and share them with the class. And finally, they'll watch a video called Alarming Trend in Dating. And this video just talked about the increased number of teen violence and the harmful effects it's having on teenagers, and how teen violence can happen, or dating violence can happen to people of any age, and signs and symptoms the students and teachers should be looking for.
And then I did more about friendships in middle school. I wanted to do a lesson on the benefits of friendship. I'd have the teacher explain what are the good characteristics, or the positive characteristics of a good friend. Students would watch a trailer of Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and take notes in a journal on what they see as the good characteristics. They would read an excerpt from TTYL by Lauren McGurley, and that's what your activity is going to be that you guys can do on your own. They would circle the good characteristics in the conversation from the page, and it's all set up as an IM conversation, instant message. So it's kind of cool to see like how their friendship evolves, like once they're entering 9th grade. And then students will complete a web to illustrate main ideas of being a good friend. And then also view the support scene from Mean Girls, just to see that there are positive characteristics. And then I'd also have them talk about loyalty and friendship. I'd give a PowerPoint lesson on how to remain a true friend and how betrayal is toxic. And then with that, I would have the students watch a clip from Aladdin, just so they can like kind of relate to it. They know the background story, and then they can pick up on the cues of what the importance of being loyal is in that scene. And then they could have a discussion on how Aladdin did not portray positive characteristics of a good friend, drawing on the ideas from yesterday. And then a teacher will give students an excerpt from The Uglies. It's a work of fiction, and it's about the future, and basically this girl has to decide if she should betray her friend or if she should stay true to her friend. so the students can just draw on that again. And then they can also do a Venn diagram worksheet to compare the uglies versus Aladdin. Origins of friendship, we were just drawing where friendship began with Aristotle's 3 principles of friendship. Students will write their own definition of what they think the 3 major principles of friendship is to them. And then students will write if they agree or disagree with Aristotle's principles. And then teacher will play a Mean Girls clip from YouTube and then illustrate, this is the different one, the 3-way phone call. And then they would just, say if Gretchen was being a good friend and demonstrating those 3 main principles. And then I'd do a lesson on difficulties within friendship, with the Sandlot dealing with friendship, so it's boys and girls then. First scene where Smalls isn't accepted by his peers, then where he becomes friends with them, and then when his new friends disagree but ultimately remain friends. The students can track the events of friendship on a plot diagram, and then they can view a song about never taking friendship personal and deciding if that's really true, if you should, be on the fence about your friendship or not, and they can connect it with the Sandlot. And then diversity in friendship, which is really important. The Aesop fable, The Lion and the Mouse. I'd have the students web search it and read it from the computer. They would create a poster with the peers on how the lion and the mouse, their friendship was evident even though they're different. And then I'd have the students watch a clip of The Little Rascals and just see that even though the boys and girls hated each other at the beginning, they ended up being friends ultimately. We would have them do a paper and have to combine it on both the relationship of dating and then relationship with friends. They would have to have 5 examples from what Michelle had in her lesson, from YouTube clips and things like that, and then same with mine, and write a paper on what is a good relationship and what is a good friendship. And then this is just our activity.